Well, guys, of course, you're not going to believe what just happened because, ladies and gentlemen, President Donald J. Trump just dropped an ultimatum on Hamas that was so powerful. It was so unexpected that it's sending shockwaves through every capital on earth, a countdown clock, a deadline, and a promise that peace will come to the Middle East one way or the other. Now, here's the part that the media doesn't want you to see. See, this isn't just another foreign policy story. This is a chain reaction. In fact, within hours of Trump's warning, Hamas blinked. Israel paused, Apple made a stunning move inside the United States, and Chuck Schumer, the Senate Majority Leader, completely fell apart on live television. You're watching history unfold, guys, right across three fronts at once: war, technology, and politics, and it's all tied together by one man's ultimatum and one nation's test of leadership. And get this, guys, even Elon Musk just weighed in, calling it the boldest power play of the century. So before you leave this video, before you assume that this is just another headline, I want you to ask yourself this: what happens when a single post from the President of the United States can move armies, crash markets, and expose political hypocrisy all in the same day? Hit the like button, subscribe, guys. Stay right there, because once you hear what Trump just did, and more importantly, what followed next, you're going to understand why the entire world just changed overnight. And you can kind of feel it. The world is holding its breath right now. President Donald Trump, he didn't just send a memo. He didn't leak a talking point. He posted an ultimatum, public, time-stamped, and really impossible to ignore. Release all hostages by Sunday, 6 p.m. Washington time, or face consequences that the world has never seen. There was no hidden wording, no back channel whispers, just a straight shot across the bow of Hamas, the kind of move that no diplomat would ever dare sign. And make no mistake, this wasn't theater. Every administration before him spent weeks crafting and sanitizing language that promised nothing and offended no one. President Trump's a little bit different here. Trump just tore that playbook in half. It's kind of hard to tear a playbook in half. Have you ever tried? Anyway, he put the entire Middle East on a countdown clock, forcing world leaders to choose peace or chaos. You choose. Now, for once, there's no gray zone. There's no gray area. And here's the wild part. It actually worked, because for the first time in years, Hamas didn't respond with rockets or rejection. Oh, they blinked. They've been blinking. Okay, so they actually partially agreed to a 20-point peace framework, not the full deal, but enough to prove the message hit its mark. Now, this is historic, folks. In a region that's been locked in hatred for generations, even a half step is a tectonic shift. It's insane. Now, picture two enemies who haven't spoken in decades. I'm talking decades of silence between them, suddenly agreeing to sit at the table, arms crossed, jaws tight, albeit, right? But finally in the same room. This is what just happened, guys. This is a crack in the door. And this is a door that's been sealed by blood and rubble for decades, and yet the clock is still ticking. President Trump's team is monitoring every move, every message, every drone overhead, because a partial acceptance is still a gamble. If Hamas follows through, the hostages come home, and Trump redefines global diplomacy in real time. Now, if they don't, he promised consequences that would make the old playbook obsolete. In fact, either way, this is leadership that forces action, not just conversation. And whether you love him or hate him, you really can't deny it. This ultimatum just changed the entire rhythm of the Middle East. And just when the world thought that the shockwave had peaked, Trump did something that no one saw coming. In fact, he turned to Israel, America's strongest ally in the region, and he said 5 words that shook the entire defense establishment. Stop the bombing for now. Key word, key operative phrase is for now. Now, it wasn't whispered behind closed doors. It wasn't filtered through diplomats. It was public, direct. This is a message to Prime Minister Netanyahu that the old rules were gone. Now, Trump said, based on Hamas's statement, I believe they are ready for a lasting peace. Israel must immediately stop bombing Gaza so that hostages can be released safely and quickly. Now, he wasn't siding with Hamas. He was calling their bluff, okay? It was a calculated test. It's a high-stakes pause meant to expose whether this so-called partial acceptance is real or if it's just another con game. Now, for decades, Washington has thrown money, missiles, and meaningless resolutions at this region here. But President Trump, he used something that was far more powerful: pressure. He said, in effect, prove it. You said you want peace? Well, all right, go ahead and show it to us. Show us you want peace. And so this is why this moment feels so volatile, because Israel is standing down, cautiously, albeit, Hamas is under a microscope. And so the world is waiting for the first hostage transfer or the first missile launch, whichever comes first. But either way, Trump's gamble, it has everybody from Tel Aviv to Tehran recalculating. Now, I want to just go ahead and pull back just for a second because none of this happens in a vacuum. It never does. Behind the scenes, a very quiet network of intermediaries, Qatar, Egypt, Jordan, Turkey, they have been burning up the phone lines. These nations are the go-betweens, passing messages between two sides that refuse to sit in the same room. Now, for months, they've been trying to find common ground in a conflict where even hello feels like a declaration of war. I know, it's crazy how much tension there is, but the instant that Trump posted that ultimatum, everything changed. Those same intermediaries suddenly had leverage. They could say, hey, you got a deadline, gentlemen. And so this is what makes this very different. Now, for once, the U.S. isn't begging for diplomacy, it's demanding it. In the entire region, it's on notice. Now, your Medicare plan doesn't just affect you, it's part of the legacy that you leave. When coverage fails, it's often children and grandchildren who carry the burden. That's why I partnered with Chapter, folks. They help you choose a Medicare plan that protects you and the family who loves you. Now, one of our viewers told us, she said calling Chapter gave me peace of mind that my kids would not be stuck with my medical bills. Now, let me go ahead and ask you guys, what kind of legacy do you really want to leave behind? Stress and bills or peace of mind? Now, most people, they're securing peace of mind right now by dialing that phone number right there at the bottom of your screen, right in front of you, or they're visiting askchapter.org/Ron. And that telephone number again is 909-563-8279. When you give my friends a Chapter a call, tell them Ron says hello. So what happened next wasn't just some geopolitical conversation. It was global shockwave politics, okay? Within hours of President Trump's ultimatum, governments around the world scrambled behind closed doors. European leaders, they called emergency meetings. Saudis went silent. The Iranians, who've been funding Hamas for decades, they were suddenly nowhere to be found on camera. Even China issued a rare late-night statement urging restraint, which is diplomatic language meaning we're not ready for what's coming. Now, this wasn't just about Gaza. No, it was about power realignment. Every major player now has to ask themselves, well, what does a world look like when Trump's the one that's setting the clock? Now, for decades, America's foreign policy was built on slow talks and symbolic gestures. But no, Trump just detonated that system with a single post. In fact, you could actually see the ripple effect everywhere. Stock markets jittering, oil prices spiking, defense contracts shifting. The global alliances are suddenly fluid. Now, one decision, one deadline, and the balance of power moved an inch, and in geopolitics, that's an earthquake. And so while the world just scrambled, the media back home played their usual game. Right-leaning outlets broadcasted the ultimate wall-to-wall, basically they're broadcasting Trump's ultimatum on all channels, calling it the boldest peace gambit in modern history. Left-leaning outlets practically silent. Ground news data showed that over half of the coverage came from conservative sources, less than a quarter from liberal ones. Now think about that. Half the country didn't even hear the part where Trump told Israel to hold fire. No analysis, no headlines, no debate. So instead, the same networks that spent years obsessing over Trump's tone, now they have nothing to say when his tone just froze a war. Now you got to ask, why? Why are these people being silent now? Because the truth doesn't fit their narrative, that's why. If Trump's ultimatum brings results, if hostages are freed and missiles stop flying overhead, well, it would be the ultimate rebuke to the entire media establishment. The same people who said that Trump would ignite World War III might have to admit, hey, he just stopped World War III. And that's why this isn't just a foreign policy shift. In fact, it's an information war. So basically, the story itself has become a battlefield and half the country doesn't even know what's happening. So to help get the word out, definitely share this video with everyone you know. And that way we can help get the truth out that they're trying to suppress. But back here at home, the ripple effect of President Trump's ultimatum, well, let's just say it hit a completely different battlefield. Big tech and national security. Just as the headlines about Hamas and Israel exploded, Apple quietly pulled a very controversial app from its store. The app was called IceBlock. You guys ever heard of that? Well, its purpose is to let users anonymously track and report sightings of immigration and customs enforcement agents in real time. You would see an ICE vehicle drop a pin on the map, and then basically everybody nearby got the alert. Now, the creators said it was about transparency, like Waze for immigration, but federal investigators say something far darker, that the Dallas ICE sniper used that very app to find his target. A federal facility attacked, one migrant killed. Suddenly the Transparency Act, suddenly the Transparency app looked a lot more like a threat map for criminals. So Apple made the call to remove it, citing immediate safety concerns. Would you guys agree with that? Do you think Apple was on time with that removal of the app, or should they have removed that app long ago? Drop a 1 if you agree with Apple's timely removal. Drop a 2 if you think that they were acting a little bit too late removing the app. And instantly, the internet exploded. On one side, conservatives were cheering that big tech finally did something right, protecting law enforcement from becoming targets. But on the other side, you got activists screaming out in the streets talking about censorship and accusing Trump's administration of political overreach. So which is it, guys? Did they do the right thing, or was this political overreach? But here's the truth that nobody on the left wants to say out loud. There is no app that tracks SWAT raids, FBI movements, or Secret Service patrols. Giving criminals a map to federal agents, that's not transparency. This is just straight up insanity. Still, basically the hypocrisy continues to run deep. The same influencers who cheer when Parler got banned for safety suddenly turned into free speech warriors when an anti-ICE app got pulled. You can't have it both ways, guys. If you want free speech, it has to apply evenly, or it's not a principle, it's politics. It's that simple. And so, speaking of hypocrisy, this kind of brings us straight to Chuck Schumer. The Senate Majority Leader, he sat down for what should have been a softball CNN interview. But Jake Tapper, of all people, actually Senate Minority Leader, let me not upgrade him. Anyway, Jake Tapper, of all people, he finally did what journalists are supposed to do. He rolled a tape. So this is a clip from March where it showed Chuck Schumer blasting Republicans for even threatening a government shutdown, calling it bad policy with no winners. Now, if you fast forward to now, October 2025, this is exactly what Chuck Schumer's doing. Is he not? Is this not exactly what Chuck Schumer's doing? Using the exact same shutdown tactics to block Trump's budget and score some political points. Now, Jake Tapper called him out, believe it or not. Schumer stammered, deflected, pivoted, anything to escape his own words, but the damage was already done. He looked like what voters hate the most. He looked like a politician who changes his principles when it's convenient, right? And so the whispers on Capitol Hill, well, they're saying that Schumer's terrified. Polls in New York show AOC gaining ground in a possible Democratic primary challenge. He's boxed in. He's too weak to oppose Trump effectively, too arrogant to cooperate, and too vulnerable to lead. That's not strategy. That is some straight up panic. So what really ties all this together? Well, because at first glance, you got 3 completely different stories. You got one in Gaza, one in Silicon Valley, and one in Washington. But let's go ahead and step back for a second, okay? Because the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. It's power. Who has it? Who's losing it? And who's willing to use it when the entire world hesitates? Now, Trump's ultimatum to Hamas wasn't just a message to terrorists. This was a signal to everyone watching that America is done playing defense. No more begging, no more apologies, no more waiting for international approval. I can't get this signed off. My manager didn't sign. No, none of that. He drew a line in the sand. He gave the world a deadline, and he forced movement in a conflict that no one thought could move. And then Apple, of all companies, whether you love Apple or you hate Apple, maybe you're an Android fan, and I don't know where you stand on that, but Apple made a call that showed just how far that ripple reached. The same week that Trump flexed his power abroad, big tech was forced to take a stand at home, not for ideology's sake, but for safety. In fact, because when law enforcement becomes a target, well, civilization itself is on the line. And so then Chuck Schumer, the symbol of the old guard, melts down under a simple question. A single contradiction exposed a lifetime of double talk. That's not a coincidence, folks. That is a collapse. The system that built its empire on caution, committees, and cover-ups, it's being confronted by something it's never faced before: accountability. That's the chain reaction right there. From Gaza to DC, the same force is shaking every corner of the establishment. Pressure from one man, unafraid to act. Love him or hate him, but that's what leadership looks like. But the real question now is what happens next? Will Hamas follow through, or are they going to test Trump's resolve? Well, let me ask you this. Will Israel keep its word and hold the line, or are they going to break under pressure from its own hardliners? Will big tech like Apple finally take a consistent stand? Are they going to go back to censoring whatever threatens their narrative? And what about Chuck Schumer? Does he survive this fallout, or does he become the first casualty of his own hypocrisy? Well, I can tell you right now, the world is on edge, folks. Every clock is ticking, every side is watching, and every decision from here forward carries global weight. And if history has taught us anything, it's that Donald J. Trump never issues a warning that he isn't prepared to enforce. So buckle up, guys, because what just started with a Truth Social post may soon reshape not only the Middle East, but the entire balance of global power. Now, if this breakdown gave you a little bit of insight, maybe more of a full picture of what's going on that the mainstream media won't touch, hit the like button for us. It tells YouTube that the truth still matters. And if you're new here, subscribe right now, because the next 48 hours, they're about to tell us whether Trump just ended a war or just started a revolution.